Hi everyone, welcome to Javatechie. In this tutorial, we'll discuss how to do Spring Boot application integration testing using test containers. Okay, alright. Usually, when you're developing any application, we do follow some best practices by defining different layers like controller, service, and DAO. Now, if I want to test each layer separately, then I could go with unit testing. But if I want to test the complete flow of an application, begin from web layer to the database layer, then I can't achieve that using unit testing. I must need to go with the integration test, right? That is what the basic difference between unit testing and integration testing, isn't it? But probably the most annoying thing about integration test is the need for testing infrastructure. So in order to tackle this situation easily, we have a simple solution known as test containers. At high level, test containers is an open source framework for providing throwaway, lightweight instance of database, message broker like Kafka or RabbitMQ, or just about anything that can run in a Docker container. So using these test containers, we can quickly set up our test environment as same as the production one, and we can avoid any conflict and we can perform better integration test. So what we will do to know more about the importance of test containers, we'll go step by step. First, we'll write integration test using our local MySQL DB, and then we'll address the problem with the test containers as a solution. Okay, so it's very simple. I will go step by step to demonstrate why do we need these test containers in real time. Okay, so without any further delay, let's get started. So to save our time, already I created one small project called core service, and if you observe, these are the layers I have defined: service layer, repository, entity, and controller. And in controller I have defined two REST endpoint to add a core subject to the DB and view all the core subject from DB. And if we will go inside the service class, I have just defined these two methods. We will connect to the DB and will persist the core subject, and this will connect to the DB and find all the core subject. So this is very simple application. We have just defined two endpoint. That's it. Okay. And even I have written the integration test using the mock MVC. So already I have covered couple of video about how to write the integration test. If you are not aware about that, just go to my channel and filter with test. You can find multiple video here. Okay. Spring Boot testing, write JUnit test using JUnit and Mockito. And this is the pure integration test using the TDD, test driven development. So you can refer this. Also I will share this link in video description for your reference. Okay, but still here I just need to give you some heads up about what we have written here. Then only it will easy for you to think how we can use the test containers here. That's very simple. Okay, so if you observe here, I have written the test case for add new course test, because if you observe in our controller we have defined two endpoint: add course and view all the course. So I have just defined the test case for these two method. If you'll go and check here, add new course, get all the course. Okay, so let's go inside each test case and understand what we have written here. So in add new course test, I am just creating a course object that I need to persist to the DB, and then I am just defining here mockmbc.perform. Let me zoom this for you. Mockmbc.perform, which kind of operation it is? Post. And what is the URL? /course. Okay. So if you observe in our controller class, we have the endpoint called /courses, and we are writing the test case for this particular method, right? Of type post mapping. That is what we just defined here. The method type is post, and I want to trigger this particular URL. Now which type of data I want to send is application.json. Now what data I want to send to trigger this particular endpoint? If you observe in the controller class, it takes the argument as a course. So same course object you need to pass while writing the test case for this particular method. So if you observe here, I have just created a test data of course with some dummy value, and then I am giving that as a body in the form of JSON. and once this particular endpoint will be triggered, I'm expecting the status code should be 200, which is okay. And then once the object will persist to the DB, it should have some ID associated to it. That is what I'm just trying to assert here. So this is about the add new course test. Now let's verify the get all the course test. It means the second endpoint, right? Get all the available course. And what is the URL? The URL is not here. Go to the controller. The URL is slash courses. And what is the method type? Is get mapping. Go to the test case. So here I'm just trying to access the get mapping with the URL slash courses and accept application slash JSON and content type also JSON. Since this is the get method, we don't have any request body. Once this particular endpoint will execute, I'm expecting the status code as a OK, which will be 200, and there should not be a empty array. I mean, I should get some value and ID should be present. This is what the things I am asserting here. Okay, so this is as much as simple, right? There is no rocket science. We have just trying to hit our controller endpoint. Now you might have a question. Again, you are writing the unit testing for your controller, right? Isn't it? But that is not the case. As you know, the entry point of our application is controller. If we will trigger any request to the controller, it will talk to the service and service will talk to the DAO if you will not mock that. Okay, so we are not going to mock that, but we will write the test case for this controller and we will verify whether it triggered the service and DAO or not. That is the reason if you observe in controller and service, I have defined the log statement. Can you see here? We'll just verify by hitting the REST endpoint or controller method from the test case whether it cover all the three layer or not. That is what we'll verify first. Then we'll find out the problem with this approach. Then we understand why this test containers is important to use in real time. Okay. So all good. Here you can keep a note. Instead of mock MVC, you can also use the test REST template. Okay. So there are multiple way you can write the integration test, or you can hit your endpoint from the controller through the test case. So I am using the mock MVC here, but you can use the test REST template as well. So I am already explained how to use the test REST template in this particular use case. So you can take a look into it. That's fine. Go here. But before that, first let's verify whether our these two endpoint is working or not. So what I'll do, I'll just start the server. Okay, cool. It created the table and it's up on port 9191. Go to the postman. I'll just add some core subject and we'll fetch it from the postman itself. Okay, go here. So this is the core subject. Let's say name is core Java, duration is 3 months, price is 1999. Let's send the request. Great, it's stored into the DB and it generates the ID 1. So let me add some other object. Let's say Spring Boot, duration is 6 months, price is let's say 399. Fine, let me send the request. The ID is inserted, I mean the record is inserted and we can see the ID is 2. Let's quickly verify it in our DB. Select star from. Let me refresh this schema first. You can see here course table is there. Can you see here? We have added these two record, right? And it is perfectly saved in the DB. Now let's try to fetch all the record. Just change it to the get. The endpoint is same, right? Slash courses. Send the request. We can see these two record, 1 and 2. That's cool. Now let's go to the code. I don't want to run the endpoint again. Okay, that's fine. We need to focus on the test case. So I will just stop it. Now let's run this test case. Let me run the add new course test, or let's run both the test case together. Okay, let me run this. Great. We can see here both the two test case passed successfully. That's great, right? Now let's verify result of each test case. Go to this add new course test, and if you see here the log statement what we have added here, it execute our controller method. then it went to the service, then it triggered the DB call. I mean, it touched my all the three layer. Okay, so that is what the integration test, guys. Okay, but if I'll mock something and if I'll write the test case, we are just bypassing that layer. So in integration test, the flow should go to the each and every layer, and we can see the result here. Similarly, verify for this. See here, it went to the controller method, it went to the service, then finally it triggered the select query to fetch the record from the DB. Let's run it again. So go to the main class, run both the test case together again. Again, both are succeed. That's fine. Now let's verify in our DB. I mean, in test also we execute two record, right? So I'll verify in my DB. See, this is what the problem here. Even though my test data is getting inserted to my development DB, that is absolutely fine if you'll run your test case in local. But what if someone ran your test case in production? Your prod data will be corrupted with this test data. Then it's gone case, right? Then definitely your manager will dance on top of your head because you are destroying your production environment and you are adding the test data to the production. That's the big problem here, right? How can we tackle this situation? One easy solution here, we could just use the H2 in-memory database provided by Spring Boot. But the problem with this approach is that H2 is probably not the database we use at runtime. When you have complex query to execute, there is no guarantee that it will work as in prod, because in production you are using MySQL and while testing you are using H2. This means our integration tests don't tell us if our code works as expected when it runs in production environment or not, because we are using two different database vendor for test and production. There could be a challenges, right? So to resolve that, we can happily use the test container, and test container is just a simple way to define the container what you are looking for. In our case, we need the MySQL instance. So very simple steps you need to follow to work with the test container. First, you need to add the test container dependency. So you can add it here. So if you observe here, let me zoom this for you. I have added the test containers dependency and then JUnit Jupyter and test containers of MySQL artifact. So I need MySQL. If tomorrow you want MongoDB, just change it to the MongoDB artifact. Okay. I mean, what instance from the test containers you need. That is what the dependency you need to specify here. Just update it. Okay, it will download the dependency. Meanwhile, we are using the latest Spring Boot version. Okay, that's fine. Now go to the test case. So here, which instance we need? We need the MySQL instance, right? So I will just use MySQL container. Can you see here? MySQL container came from org.testcontainers.containers. Just use this. And MySQL containers means nothing. We are just asking this test container to give us a MySQL image or MySQL instance in a container. That is what, right? So I'll just tell him, hey, new MySQL container, and I want to use the Docker image, which is MySQL latest. I want to use the latest image of MySQL. Just get it for me. Define it static because I want to use it in other code. Fine. Now once you have defined your MySQL container, you need to tell to your test case to connect to this container rather than your actual DB. How you can tell that? There is a annotation dynamic property source. So first let me write a method static void configure property, something like that. Then just annotate this at the rate dynamic property source, and you need to specify the dynamic property registry. Next, just add your dynamic property registry. Now in this registry, we need to set our database URL, driver class name, username and password by fetching the information from this container. Okay, so very simple. Registry dot set add, then give the key which is spring dot data source, dot URL, and from where you will get the value from this container. Get the value from here. Similarly, set the other value. Let me copy this username, password. Fine. So I have just defined the data source related properties by fetching from the MySQL containers. You have option if you want to override the default behavior. By default, you will get the username as a test and password as a test and JDBC URL given by the container. But if you want to override that, you can go to the MySQL container. Let me show you. The default tag of the MySQL we are using 5.7.35 and default user is test, password is test. You can set your own properties. How? Just a single step. So here MySQL container, not like this, you can directly use the builder pattern dot with username. Can you see here? You can set okay for this instance what I am defining, the username is Javatechie, and also you can define the password. I mean anything you can define, okay? Similarly, let's say with port, exposed port, you can define something, some number. Fine. I'm not going to use this. I'm just using the default one, but this is the way you can override the behavior of this container. Fine. Once these are done, in application startup, I want to connect to this container, and on application end, I want to destroy that container. That is what I just want to do. So simple step, before starting all the application, just start the container. So I'll just use the before all method, void the annotation itself, before all. This particular method will execute before all the method. So what we want to do, we just want to start the container. Fine. Now I'll write another method to close the container after all the method execution. So I'll change it to the annotation itself after all, and I just want to stop it. Fine. So what we are doing here, we are getting the container and we are setting the properties and then we are starting it. This is not the way only you can use the MySQL container. If you want, you can use any messaging container like Kafka or RabbitMQ or anything which Redis or anything which you can run in the Docker container. You can get the instance of it in a single steps by just defining this line. Okay, so I am covering this test container because I want to demonstrate in my next session how we can write the test case for Kafka. Okay, so that is the reason this understanding of this test container is most important. That's fine. So all good. Now just go and check in your DB. We have only these 4 record. Out of 4, 2 are the valid record and 2 are the corrupted record. Let it be. I'm not going to delete and restart it again. So now we just want to verify. Since we'll start our test case, it should not insert any test data to the DB. Okay, that is what we just want to verify. Now to use the test container, since we are using the test containers here, make sure to start the Docker in your local machine. Just start up the Docker. Otherwise, how it will get the image for you? You are asking him to get the MySQL latest image. So for that, Docker should be up and running in your machine. That's fine. It will take few seconds. So it started. Now let me run the application. I mean the test case. I'm running the both. I mean the add the new course to the DB and get all the codes from the DB. Let me minimize this. Yeah. So observe it carefully. Starting to pull the images, you can see here the image we are asking him to get the MySQL latest version, I mean with the latest tag, and it is trying to pull that image. It will take few seconds to pull that image. Once it will be done, it will connect to that particular MySQL instance instead of your actual one. You can see here creating container for image MySQL latest, and then okay, where it went, okay, it is started now. Can you see here? it trigger the insert query. If you observe here, the integration test is executing correctly because it triggered the controller method, then it went to the service, and then it connect to my DB. Same for get all the cores. Log statement from controller, log statement from service. It means the flow is going to each layer, and finally it select from the DB. Now how we can verify whether it went to the DB or not, right? So if you'll verify in your local DB, the record what you have ran it should not be inserted here. Let's run it. Can you see here I ran it multiple times. We are only seeing the 4 record. To get the better visibility, I will call this get method. I will only get the 4 result. Okay, I stopped my server, right? So what I'll do, I'll just start the core service application. So it started. Just trigger the same endpoint again. We are getting only 4 record. Now if I'll run it again and again, not a single record will insert to the DB. But my test environment is now sync with the production, because prod I am using MySQL and even test I am using MySQL. So there should not be any conflict for the complex query or for the use case or for the indexing and all kind of scenario. Okay, so this is how you can use the test containers to avoid the conflict, environment conflict in different in prod and different in test, and to make sure that your integration test is correct what you have written here. Okay, so I found these test containers are more useful in real time. You can just give a try by just playing with the different container like the DB or messaging queue and anything which you can run in the container. Okay, so do let me know in a comment section if you guys have any doubts. That's all about this particular video, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Meet you soon with a new concept.